and I just want to remind the world that they are awesome
Mm.
because you are. Um, I should probably begin all this with an introduction. Hello, my name is James. I am very interested in cooperatives, worker-owned cooperatives that are built around businesses. And I've been coming up with a cunning plan to to somehow come up with the initial capital, and in order to do that here in rural northwestern southern southern southwestern northern southwestern Ontario. That's it. The budding metropolis, rural or urban metropolis of Owen Sound, and where we're going to be doing a project that we call the 10-100, which is based around having 10 businesses with 100 people that are committed to the running of those businesses. And through the membership, which would be $100 a month, we would raise the initial capital that we need in order to start the initial set of businesses, which of course goes back into the pot, and at the end of which we end up turning it into a business making machine that we all get to share in the dividends of, which by the time we all get all 10 businesses up and running, and hopefully by the end of it all, we won't owe anybody a thin red dime cent. We're working on that metaphor. Anyway, the point of the matter is, you're all awesome, and glad to have you, especially you, John. Hello.
Hi. So far, that's me. There might be a few others joining in a bit. We'll see.
I am exceedingly glad that there is anybody here. Curtis is off making something with potatoes. And he said that when he's done with that, he'd be more than willing to engage in the conversation at hand. Um, and so I've just given a brief overview of the 10100. John, as one of these fun little exercises that I like to do with people that I've shared the idea with before, I like to get them to kind of bounce back the idea as they understand it to me, to explain it a little bit more in full, to give me a bit better idea of how I can what I'm doing right in terms of communicating and
Hmm.
where I need to work a little bit better. So, can I put you on the spot and ask you what is a 10-100?
What is a 10-100? Well, it's
Or yeah,
10 businesses making up a collective of 100 members,
hmm.
making up for collective. Um, so any risk is sort of any risk with one business is sort of maintained by the entity of the whole.
Yes,
That's it in a nutshell.
yeah,
Yeah,
um,
right.
yeah, pretty much. One of the other things I've been meaning to do, and I don't know, how's your brain for math?
I can figure out basic stuff. I'm not. I'm nowhere like a mathematician or anything like that. I'm really more of an artistic type, but I can do basic math and stuff.
That's more than fair. I am certainly not a math major, although I did take math, to a couple more years than I had to in high school. I'm pretty sure.
I
Anyway,
took grade 9 math 4 times.
ooh,
Yeah,
that's exciting.
that's yeah. Yeah, that was a bit of a slog.
I remember doing well in math in my first year. In grade 9, I had like somewhere in the 90s or something.
Mm,
And
nope.
then as it progressed, it just kind of went.
Mm,
Yeah, may have had some major depression issues at the time that I didn't know how to deal with, and the community I grew up in precluded me from
mm.
getting professional help. So,
No, I think I had the same sort of problems. Not necessarily the, you know, overall. I don't think anybody really realized where I was mentally, and I was too far gone to. I was still on Ritalin at the time, so I was still
right?
coming out of that fog, and I wouldn't make connections with it for many more years. So that's
It's a
me.
Yeah, man, it's amazing
So,
how um I was never on Ritalin, but I
mm,
have friends of mine who were, and you should check into that. I don't know if you have it all, but there
I
are,
have. There's a
yeah,
lot of weird side effects that came with it that I was completely unaware of. In fact, it was Laura when she was off in Trent, off at
yeah,
Trent. She
yeah,
sent a oh, for pity's sakes, I'm losing my words. She sent an article in a Facebook, and I went through this thing, and every little negative side effect, like I wasn't getting the proper one because I had the wrong type of ADHD,
yeah,
but every side effect was coming. I was going bing, bing. Well, that explains that. Well, that explains that. Why didn't I make this connection before?
right,
The, yeah, I had very short in junior high. I didn't know that was related to it. Apparently, it was. Um, yeah, and instead of making me focus, I kind of turned in on myself and zonked out for at least the first part from grade 3 up until I was starting like grade 5.
yeesh.
I was totally zonked out. When I started to come back out, I had temper issues.
Oh,
So,
geez, man. Yeah, no, I hear that. You know, and it's affected all of our abilities to function, you know, within the cogs of the machine in the world that we live in. And so of course the TIM 100 is uh one of the reasons why I came up I've been in the process of coming up with this idea, and why I'm reaching out to bring others into incorporating the building of this idea is because it finding or creating a workspace that works with my brain would be awesome. I had it once where I worked with a sort of like a mom and pop operation, entrepreneurial, sole proprietorship type thing, where I knew the owners and I was friends with them before they bought the business, and I was friends with them while they had the business, and I had a job there because I was friends with them, really. And uh, you know, I needed a job, they needed a manager, and the
yeah.
work wasn't hard, you know, and the work was great. And in fact, I still love that experience. This was the bowling alley. I had so much
Okay.
I had so many great experiences learning about how, like, managing stuff there, learning how the money works, how cash flow works, you know, what can tank a business, you know, because that business unfortunately folded. And there were reasons. And in because I was a part of it, not at the beginning, but at the end when it tanked, I got to see the raw, horrible insides of what happens when a business fails in this capitalist environment.
Hmm.
And it was pretty ugly,
Yeah.
and pretty devastating, and the kind of education that you can't pay for, but damn, you learn, right? And so, no, fortunately, I wasn't the one who had to make it. My friends did, and but I was there with them,
Yeah.
and so learning from that, I said, well, what would be a way if I wanted to start a business? How would I be able to avoid the pitfalls that brought their business down? You know, and one of the things to consider is, you know, most businesses are seasonal. Most businesses have a point in time when they're making money and when they're busy, and a slow time when they're in sort of reduced production mode. Certainly, if you are dealing with customers, you're going to be at, depending on what it is that you're selling. If you're in the entertainment industry, you're at the whim of the customer's fancy and available disposable income.
Some
And
businesses work best in their best at times are in the summer because they're, I don't know, at Sawble or something like that, and some businesses
mhm,
are, they do their best work at Christmas time and only then.
mhm. Yeah, for example, bowling alley.
Yeah. Oh.
Nobody goes bowling as soon as the weather becomes nice.
Oh, okay. I
As
can
soon
sort of see
as
that.
Yeah, as soon as the snow disappears and it's warm out, everybody stops bowling. The leagues continue sometimes into April, early May at the latest.
Mm,
But once the leagues stop and they break for the summer,
it's dead.
ain't nobody going bowling unless it's a torrential downpour, and in which case, all hands on deck because everybody and their grandma has gone bowling because, they can't go to the beach.
Yeah.
So a wet summer is the only thing that will keep a bowling alley afloat, which is fine if depending on what your overhead is, and unfortunately, not a lot of money lenders will take the summer off while you have a down period. So unless
Mm,
you made enough in the up months to cover the down months, you're in a position where you're bleeding for a quarter of the year to a tune which is more than I make in a year. um,
hmm
and certainly more than I've ever made in a year. Like it's enough to make you go oi oi oi. So in trying to figure out how to avoid a situation like that, and watching what they did in order to compensate for the lack of um, uh, uh, income that they would have through the bowling business, they would often do things like try to go where the customers were during the summer months. So, they would, for example, had a business making confectionery that they would then sell on the beach out at
Oh, yeah.
Sobel. Now, unfortunately, um, first year happened to be the year when the loonie was high and parking was horrible and things and location was just and it barely broke even. It was a good attempt, um,
Oh,
and but it allowed them to survive that summer to continue on. Whether or not that was good or not, valiant attempt, very interesting, and it got me to thinking, okay, so having multiple businesses in order to keep us the larger business afloat um, is a strategy which works. Um, it's a way of spreading out, and I think a lot of businesses do this. They come up with different reasons for people to come in during off peaks of the year.
for
They
supply. Yeah.
Yeah, and so really the 10100 is a way of uh, taking that principle and just instead of the additional businesses being afterthoughts or band-aid solutions, invest in them like they're uh, with real proper
Well, they
backing.
are real proper businesses. They're just other proper businesses at
Hmm.
different time points and different niches all coming together to make a unified, continuous income generating
Yeah, and
thing.
basically, yeah, basically the point of the 10100 is to create a structure that allows for us to build around 10 core businesses that are that we all look at and we all say, yeah, we see the business model, we see how it's going to make money or how it's projected to make money. Now we also understand that there are best case scenarios and there are worst case scenarios,
Mhm.
and therein lies the risk, and that's business, baby. Okay,
Yes.
so collectively, we've all taken a look at these 10 businesses and we've all basically ratified, said, yes, that's a good business model. Yes, that's a good business model. Yes, that's a good enough business model.
Was
Yes,
that
yes.
last week's?
Oh, yes, last week we talked with Gavin.
Oh,
and about the possibility of getting a website up
oh,
and
that's a good
running.
idea. Yeah,
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 well,
yeah.
getting a 10100.coop.
Hmm.
So we're looking at the possibility of that. I haven't heard back from him about that.
Oh, he'll be he's busy doing it too.
He's doing so
We're
much.
still, yeah, we're still in like the early stages of this. We might not see it for a little bit because it's
Well,
honestly, to be
here's the
honest,
thing.
we're not the priority project at the moment because we are such early days.
Oh, with Gavin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, it is really like I think he's on board. I think I may have accidentally radicalized him a little bit uh, by
Oh,
sending him
Gavin's
a
cool.
bunch of TYT stuff. Because I see after
Oh, he's
him and I
oh
became, yeah, Facebook
he's
friends.
actually been posting stuff like that before too. So yeah,
Oh, good.
yeah, he's already pretty much on board. On board. Yeah.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking. Like, it's very easy for me to find a word that I've been increasingly becoming more and more comfortable with: comrades, people who are on the
Mm,
same wavelength, people
yeah.
who are like, yeah, I'm poor, but you know what, we're gonna make this happen, because like
Mm,
this is recognize that uh, by putting a little aside for with 99 other people all doing the same thing, we're going to be able to produce something that's going to make this community amazing, that's going to create environments that we will be able to fit in and work in as far as a democratic workplace goes, and that's one of the selling points for me as the laborer, as in all of this. I am looking forward to the possibility of choosing which job I'm going to be working at, this month or this week,
mm.
or which days I'm going to be working out which workplace, maybe picking up shifts at doing a shift as a DM for RPG for Hire, which is part of the 10100 cooperative. It's an adjunct business. It's not one of the main ones, but it just happens to coincide with um, our Flagons and Dragons restaurant and geek gamery, environment extraordinaire, which is coalesced and merged with Scenic City Games, which is come in. So we got Jen and Jeff looking after the games store end of things, and I have been managing the business end or the restaurant end of the stuff there, along with another co-manager who looks after the kitchen. I look after the front end and presentation. You know, this is my dream for within the
I like the
become
idea
100
of
there.
a shift in different, you know, so not every day is like, your same and same old routine and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Depending on what business has again, with the seasonal thing, depending on which business is in its prime season, they'll need more for that too. And it might actually be an interesting idea to sort of step in and help in with that one, even if I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of excited about working with this garage that we're
Great.
talking
Yeah.
about.
Oh, I should check and see if
I'd love to have
Tyler's
a cargo.
around.
That'd be cool.
Because like Tyler's the dude who came up with the idea initially. He's usually around to shoot the proverbial
Excrement.
thank you. Like one of the things that this other feller Tyler, who came up with the idea of creating a shop that upgrades gas guzzlers to electrical vehicles,
Hmm.
um, and doing conversions, I should say. Pardon me. I don't have COVID. I smoke weed.
I
Um,
know. It's fine.
I mean, if I do have COVID, it was nice knowing you. I smoke weed.
I think if you didn't know by now and you had it, you're probably going to be fine. You'd be one of the asymptomatic ones.
Well, indeed. But like I said, I smoke weed, and that apparently is it ups your chances of dying from it, or at least having severe respiratory scar
Oh,
tissue.
that's the smoke inhalation that's doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, guilty.
Yeah.
Um, but it beats the fear. Um,
Oh yeah.
Point of the matter is, uh, hunting lodges. So I had initially, in talking with him about what, or in feeling out what a 10-100 could possibly be, uh, once I came up with the idea that, 10 people or 10 businesses with 100 people or 10 people per business, just, it's a simple mathematical sort of thing there. Actually,
Yeah.
it's not quite like that. Have I ever broken down how the businesses actually look like in terms of like what the metric approximately is?
Met- Uh,
Hold on, I'll pull up the whiteboard here.
possible it came up while it wasn't technically the first official meeting of this. I think you might have brought it up when I was at Laura's using the internet,
Hey,
and you came
hey,
on with the rest of us.
I do love the internet. So, da-da-da-da. Oh, that's horrible. Oh no, that'll work. Okay, so there we go. Look at that. I can even move it around. Are you able to see what I'm doing on the whiteboard?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, hey.
Yes, I see some
Some little
ovals.
circles. Yeah. Um, so,
Are those like bullet points?
yeah, actually, I wonder if I
Hmm.
can just, well, that might just be easier. Um, so we got 100 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So of those 100 people, we've got 10 businesses. And so each of those businesses is going to have a visionary, an entrepreneur, or the person who would be the entrepreneur in the traditional capitalist structure.
Yes.
So this is
You
the
could still
person who's,
call him an entrepreneur. It's just not a capitalist entrepreneur. It's a co-op entrepreneur, I guess.
I would have to look into what the word entrepreneur actually
Yeah,
connotates because it's
it's
it's a
true.
French word. Um, and I can't remember if it's like if it carries a connotation of like going it alone, which is why sole proprietorships are usually entrepreneurs or like people who go to
Hmm.
trade school and then go start their own business, where it's just them. They're
The
called entrepreneurs, right? And
an
then they
entre-
grow and then they
a
become.
collective entrepreneur would be like an oxymoron then.
I'm wondering. I'm wondering. I would
Yeah.
have to look into the stuff there. But regardless, because we're going to have 10 businesses, those 10 businesses are going to be essentially managed by the person who would have been the entrepreneur in a traditional capitalist uh, business structure. Now, under those structures, it would usually just be one person, one business, because most people, as far as I'm aware, don't have enough money to start 10 businesses or enough brain power to run 10 businesses themselves. That would be a fool's errand, you know.
It drives me crazy just thinking of that. I'm
Well,
glad I'm
and
not the one doing that all on my own.
indeed, the beauty of this is I don't have to run any of these businesses. We just need to make sure that each of these businesses that is going to be proposed has a competent manager, has the
Mhm.
person who is capable of running that business there, either amongst the group or we're able to hire from without somebody who's willing to work within the 10-100 structure. We do things a little bit differently. Everybody gets paid the same living wage when they do a shift. Um, it's that simple. You do a
Mhm.
shift, you get paid $20 an hour. You're cleaning toilet seats, cool. You're being the chef, cool. Being the sous chef, cool. You know, um, There are incentivizations within there, though. Like if, for example, you have, and this is something that's still fluid, but the way we do incentivizations isn't through increasing the hourly wage, but it's through giving extra pips in a work week. What I say pip, I mean a dividend share. Um, uh, have I explained how the dividend share system works?
Uh, did that come up? That might have been on in the first meeting,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah, so the idea being that when the 10 businesses end up turning a profit or make a surplus, we would then at the end of the quarter add up all the money that we made, and to figure out how we divvy up the surplus. Basically, I want to make sure that the people who have contributed to the making of that surplus get the largest or get a cut of that surplus.
Hmm.
So anybody who's ever worked a shift, just one 4 hour shift in a work week, you earn a dividend share for that work week. If you work
Hmm.
full-time hours, you earn a second, you earn another dividend share. If you refer sales, so you take a business card with a QR code on it, you scan it so it's bound to your identity within the cooperative, hand it out to all your friends, to random strangers, to your neighbors, to people you meet in the shopping line 6 feet away, because we're, in that world now. And
We'll see how long.
we'll see how long civilization lasts, right?
Yeah, really.
Indeed. So we end up with the situation in this scenario where, um, um, uh, sorry, I just had a brain fart moment where I'm like, I wanted to make sure I had the participant thing up here in case somebody's trying to join. Sorry, what was the
Yeah.
last thing I said? ADD moment.
You were talking about dividend shares and
Mm.
what was the
Oh
last
yeah, different ways
point?
to get dividend shares. So
Hmm.
uh, now every member of the cooperative can earn dividend shares. You can earn multiple dividend shares, but everybody's capped at 5 dividend shares a week,
Okay.
which is nice because it makes a maximum of 65 possible dividend shares that are earned in a quarter, because a quarter is 13 weeks. It makes it nice, easy. It's actually 13 and a half weeks, but whatever. It's it's what happens when you divide 365 days and by 4. It's fun.
Odd
Anyway,
numbers don't divide well. They never did.
although
Yeah.
very curiously enough, 364 divides into 13 evenly.
And 13 doesn't divide in anything.
No. 364
Yeah,
divides.
364 does. Yeah.
Yeah, 364 divides into 13 evenly.
That's interesting. What an odd
It
prime number
divides
there.
into it. It's 28 days for each for 13 months,
Yeah.
and then you have one extra day left over, which would technically be the 14th month.
You have to divide that one day into 13 parts then. When
I
they
would just make
decide
it.
to
I would just
divide
make
it
it
into
like
12.
I would just make it like the solstice or the equinox or something,
Yeah.
and just have that be like its own singular day month. Like, and
Yeah.
that day is just set aside, and that's New Year's, and but dividend shares. Everybody gets maximum of
Winters
five,
Frummer Day.
5 a week, and there are multiple ways to earn dividend shares. I would propose that each business, when they are trying to incentivize or reward people for having, say, a certain level of education or a certain level of expertise, um, something that they have, that the people within that business have decided that this is uh, this is something worth rewarding via a dividend share. Now,
Mm-hmm.
again, you max out at 5, so you can do all the things. You could refer 12 customers in a week, but you're still only going to get 5 dividend shares from all that. And then, of course, when we get together for our quarterly meeting where we get updates about the business, about how the cooperative is running, and we ratify any new businesses that we're going to plant out of or start, I should say, out of the capital fund that we are constantly building up. Like our $100 membership fee goes directly to the capital fund.
Okay. Yeah.
And we don't start doing anything with that capital fund until either we as a collective decide that we want to start a benefit program prior to starting a business. So, for example, if for your $100 a month we wanted everybody to get dental before we got started a business,
Mm.
then we would be a group benefit program right off the bat, and we would shop around and get that sort of thing. I wouldn't recommend that. I think we should start a business first so that it starts generating income, so that
Generally,
the
that's a wiser
business,
decision.
yeah, so that it starts generating income or revenue, which that in turn we can start using to offset things, benefits like full dental, which I'm sure all of us could really use right at the moment, right?
Well,
Yeah. Okay, so we got 100 people, and so we got the 10 businesses, and those are going to be 10 entrepreneurially minded, right? So let's bring whoops, let's bring the 100 people over here. There we go. So of that 100 people, we're going to have 10 business managers, right? Which is going to bring us down. It's going to leave us with 90 people, right? You know what? This is silliness. I can't get it back.
it'll be 90. What would you call them?
The 90 people are left over.
Yeah.
Um. Oh. They're members of the cooperative, same as everybody else.
Okay.
Um. In fact, the business managers are members of the cooperative. Eventually, the position of business manager will become an elected post. But I would, for especially for the people who are proposing the business, they would get like a certain amount of time set aside as a mandate for them to run the business as they envision it. So
Establish it. Yeah.
exactly. So as I've mentioned before, we got 10 businesses and 100 people. We all agree on what those 10 businesses are. Of course, somebody's going to have to propose what those businesses are going to be at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And the person making the proposition for that business is going to be the business minded, the entrepreneurial minded person. And so I propose for the 10100, we would allow the people making the proposition for the business, give them a 3-year mandate. It's what I'm thinking about just as a beginning, with a yearly review uh, um, to run and operate the business for the first 3 years without having to worry about uh, um, their position as manager being contested by election. And then after that, the position of manager would be up as an elected position um, from amongst the membership of the business once the business has become established.
How
Um,
and how long would each, for lack of a better word, term be? Do you think would it be like a yearly thing or
I
another
think,
3 years or something?
yeah, I mean that's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
One to which I am wanting to reach out to other cooperatives to find out how they do that, how
Yeah.
they take care of that sort of thing. My gut instinct is sort of like the 3-year mandate seems like a good, sort of general thing, and then with like having mechanisms in place that allow for if like say 3 months in it turns out the person that we all thought was going to be a really good manager for this business is like three left toes and like is just bungling things up. They're closing when there are customers knocking on the door wanting in and they're refusing to open. They're making decisions that benefit them and their friends and are not benefiting the business as a whole, that sort of thing. Okay, every single month, every single business has just closes down for the day, and you are paid to come into the shop to be a part of the management of the business, where you learn, what if any money was made over the course of that month and where the shortfalls are and what we as the workers can do in order to make things better, with the understanding that we aren't just hourly wage slaves anymore. We own this
Hmm.
business and we're only going to make money if we make money. Right? There's no daddy warbucks in the wings that's going to pay us whether or not we make any money. um, we're it. And on one hand, that's incredibly emancipating. On the other hand,
A
um,
little.
I mean, the
Puts the
truth,
pressure on.
it does, and I think that's okay. That's the
Yep.
kind of pressure that I can live with.
Hmm.
And as I was saying with Laura in one of our previous conversations, uh, we just need to drill into everybody's head that if I work a shift, and again, a shift is always 4 hours, um, I need, I'm going to get paid, or it's going to cost the business $100 for me to work that 100 hours. I need to make $200 over my 4 hour shift. If I make $400, we all laughing, right? And uh, and if we can just sort of like drill that sort of ideology into everybody's head, that just to be conscious and aware of what you are doing in order to contribute uh, to the business of everything, and just be aware that if I was the cost of the business $100 for me to stand around here today, or $200 to stand around here today, because that's what a 8 hour shift would cost, or and did I make any money? Did we make $200, or did I cost the business money? Right?
Mm.
Um, and and it's not just, I don't even like thinking of it as like the business. That's just the language that I've grown up in because yay, capitalist neoliberal hellscape. Hey,
Yeah.
um, because this is like uh, I don't know. It's a way of definitely investing myself in it in a way that I wouldn't if I was a wage slave, right? And the way most people don't. But
Yeah.
it's also a way of ensuring that if I'm putting a lot of myself into it, as is everybody else, I am guaranteed to get out of it something, right? Because I put 40 hours in this week, I get at least 2 dividend shares. And if I, in the midst of it, one of my neighbors took one of my 10% off, 5% off coupon cards into one of our co-op businesses let's say we have a grocery store or um, a department store, even something to rival Walmart,
Mm.
uh, something that my neighbor might go to and might take advantage of the fact that I will give him a 5% discount card. Cool. I refer business to the cooperative, and as long as he does that once a week, I'll get an extra dividend share every single week. Yay me! And the 10 business managers. So yeah. So of those 10 business managers, I would imagine on average, um, each business would take about 7 people to make it operational on average. Some might take only 4, some might take 14. But in the end, it'll all work out in the wash, and we'll say that the businesses of the uh, each of the 10 businesses of the 10 100 will, on average, at the beginning at the very least, have 7 people plus 1 business manager per business. So doing the math, that leaves us with 20 people left over. So it's over here. So after we got 90 people left over, so of the 90 people, 70 of those people are going to be operating in the different businesses there. So we'll say 10 business managers. So we'll say on average 7 7 members business. Mm. Put that there.
So that's 70 people.
Yep.
Yeah, which would leave 20. Okay.
Yeah, and so the 20 people who are left over are going to become the people who become a part of the core business, which is arguably the 11th business in the 10 100, and that's
Okay.
the administration. And that's going to take
Okay.
care of bookkeeping, accounting, tax, compliance, legal compliance. They're going to take care of, they're basically the people with the money. So this will also be the umbrella under which benefit businesses will be run. So within the 10 100, we're going to have the core businesses, which are 10, adjunct businesses, which are businesses that we come up with as we go along that aren't good enough to be the core 10 businesses, but still make money.
Yeah.
And it came up after we started, and it was a niche that we saw, and somebody proposed it at one of our quarterly meetings, and we voted on it, and it got either 2/3 majority to receive matched funding from the capital fund. So every dividend share that gets put towards an adjunct business would get matched by donation, or would get matched by a capital share if it had a 2/3 majority. Otherwise, if it just got 50%, an adjunct business would then get funding just directly through um, what do you call dividend shares. Does that make sense?
I think so.
I talked a lot about how you can generate dividend shares. I never got around quite to. Oh, hold on. We're gonna. Never got around quite to the point where I talked about when we would cash in those dividend shares. So the idea would be once a quarter, we would get together as a big, huge corporate 100-person gathering, where we would learn about how the 10 100 as a whole did and how much our individual dividend shares are worth. And then we would break, and we would then have the option to cash in our dividend shares, or reinvest those dividends within the company. And so instead of cashing in those dividends and getting taxed, but get the money, you would pay capital gains tax and all that other great stuff. Instead of doing it that way, you would then say, instead of taking my dividend and cutting myself a check, I'm instead going to invest this dividend into this other business project that I have. Or, and this is where the third possible business comes into play. That's a side business. So I talked about adjunct businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Adjunct businesses could potentially get funded through dividend shares, right? Um, so if you come up with a business idea that you wanted to pursue, and you could convince 50 people to go along with it, then the cooperative would then and the 20 people who are left over, who would be, of those 20 people, there would be a team of people who develop business. That's their job. They develop businesses for the 10100 cooperative, and they work with people who come up with business ideas to make it financially viable, to make it so that it'll make some money, which is the ultimate goal here. Now, we do have businesses that do not have to make money, and those are side businesses. So if you wanted to come up with a business idea that, say, for example, I want to have a business where uh, it's going to be my job to go and take pictures on the Bruce Trail for 8 hours this week, and you can come up with a side business that you can then fund using your dividend shares, to then basically be once a month, once a week. How many dividend shares do you want to put into it? It's entirely up to you. But it's a way of setting aside a time where you will get paid $20 an hour to do whatever it is that you want. If it's, make work on your hobby car for a show where it's going to represent the 10100. If it's going to be it's just the where the money comes from is through your dividends. If and you can pre-fund that job that you do, you get paid for, and that's a side business. Those don't have to make money. They just can't cost money that isn't costed for or
Yeah.
covered, through the dividend there. So when you create a side business, you create a budget, and within that budget, it outlines, a goal. I need 2 shifts worth of time in a week to cover my mental health. Doing something that with my time that is producing some kind of labor, be it, you know what, you want to Twitch stream playing video games and not have to worry about monetizing your channel, just be able to just
Hmm.
stream and get paid for it. Guess what? You can do that through the 10100. It's a side business. There would be a cap. I would say that there would be a maximum of like um, so many hours in a work week that a side business can represent, with the possible exception of ooh, yeah, I just thought of something, um, or rethought of something. The idea of like making production companies. So I have a friend of mine who I would love to bring into this conversation, but she's not online, who has all these brilliant ideas for sketch comedy shows. Uh,
Oh man, see, that's something I would love to do. Oh, geez, I would love to. I've got things in my. I want to do an animation project at some point. I think
okay.
that'd be cool.
Okay, well then I need to bring my brother in on this because he's an artist, and
Mm.
he probably would hate the fact that I just volunteered him for doing an animation project because
Well, I was thinking more of like a stop motion claymation sort of thing, but still.
either way, if you could come up with a project that he would be willing to, like a side project that you would then fund using dividend shares, um, you could then collaborate with somebody like my brother to do a stop go claymation animation project,
Hmm.
so many hours a week. Hell, if you guys want to, I would even say if you wanted to make it like almost like a full-time gig, that everyone was like, yeah, we definitely need to set aside John and Andy for like a month, and they just need to work on this and nothing but this for a month. And everyone is like, yeah, I'll put my dividend toward that, because like if I take out any more money, I'm going to go into the next tax bracket. Ah, ha ha
It'll be like the 10-100s, Matt Stone, Trey Parker, just off doing whatever they want.
Well, and that's the dream behind the 10100
Mhm.
is it's a vehicle that allows us to be able to do stuff like that. Now, traditionally, if you're going to do stuff like that, you need to have the foresight to be born into a family that already has businesses up and running and has liquid capital in order for you to be able to play around with stuff like that. Um, this sort of circumnavigates that and allows us to kind of it's going to probably take a couple of years before we get to that point, but within the framework, if we do it according to the way I think it should work out based on what I'm seeing so far, there's no reason why we couldn't do these very things. In fact, I'm excited for the possibility of creating side businesses, and encouraging side businesses to become a thing, and especially as we grow. There we go. I have a cat, and periodically I get cat hair in the weirdest of places.
You're you're lucky.
Was
I
that
periodically don't.
fair enough? I take it you're a cat person as well, then.
Yeah,
Mm,
constantly pulling cat hair out of things I don't want cat hair in.
mm,
Oh well.
indeed.
For example, I just pulled some off my nose. I don't even know how it got there.
Same. That's I was going like I want to keep talking, but like I'm totally getting distracted by the fact that I have a little hair. Where is it? I could see it in the corner of my eye. Totally distracted. Back to the 10100. So yeah, so the 20 people, of those 20 people, some of them are going to be members of the board, right? Um, and they're going to be their job is going to be to make this all work. So the way I've thought of it is the business managers are responsible for creating the environment where the customers are drawn to.
Mhm.
The laborers, the members that are working for the business, are responsible for making sure that it's the best work environment for the other members, as well as the best experience for the customers, right? And the board are responsible for making sure that it's all making money. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so
We
their
are the
job,
board. Administrate. No,
or something like that,
sorry.
they're the ones at the end of the day are making sure that we're not just pissing around, barely breaking even, because especially at the beginning, because we want to have our the first number of businesses that we got get up and running. They're going to be loved and adored and supported like crazy by the other 92 of us that are going to be on the outside, looking
Mm.
at the 8 people who have started business number one, who are, uh, we're going to be sending them as many different customers as possible, because that's the only way we get to generate dividends. There are 92 of us, but there are only 7 people that are um, working at that business either full time or part time. Oh, and yeah,
I think if there's anybody less left, they can still be like an auxiliary person. Like if a business needs like an eighth or a ninth or whatever person, that'd be
oh,
okay too.
absolutely.
Yeah,
But this is just the idea, like
this is the
with an
basic
average
core
of
idea.
7. Yeah. So like yeah, each business, like there are going to be businesses that are going to be need like 20 people. Like we tossed around the idea of like doing some industrial scale uh, uh, stuff here in Owen Sound. reinventing industry. They were all thinking like medical stuff. I think everybody and their brother is thinking about opening up a respirator or ventilator factory right at the moment. So I think that's a fool's errand myself. But to thinking about what we can do in order to bring back manufacturing, like we live in a harbor, like we can possibly do something with that, you know, this sort of idea. So far we've got 8 people that are starting the first business, and there are 92 of us on the outside that are going to be like each business is going to have 4 laborers. So uh, so even though when we get the 100 people in our 10 businesses, even though we all ratify the 10 businesses, we're going to be asked to commit to one business. And so for each business that we're committed to, we're basically the manager's first line of defense for laborers. They're the people that are committed to putting in the hours that that business is required or needs in order to operate, and they're the first line. Now, if any of those people get sick or they're like, you know what, I'm at my limit, I can only work 30 hours this week, I can't work the full 40, or however it works, it would be 32 or 28, whatever, multiples of 4, that's the point. And at that point, the manager of that business would then turn to the other 92 of us who are not the core members of that business and say, I have a shift opening today. Anybody who wants it, who's qualified to do this shift, you want to pick up some extra money? Done. Come on over. You're the next contestant on the prices we're going to pay you. And so that's one of the beauties of having the 10-100 is that you can usually guess that there's going to be somebody out there who can wait a table or bus a table or can operate a cash register or can swing a hammer or can dig a ditch or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be people out there who will always want to pick up an extra shift.
Yeah.
I've learned this, and there are going to be some people out there who are going to want to drop an extra shift as well.
Yes.
And that's cool as well.
Some of these will maybe even be the same people.
Absolutely.
From different times, depending on what's going on in their life. Yeah.
Exactly. And in this sort of scenario and setup, there won't be. I want to say that there won't be the penalization that you suffer under the capitalist model, but it's not that simple.
Of course.
I can foresee a way of this because it is a democratic process, and that's where the possibility of getting to vote out your manager becomes an intriguing possibility for the people who are committed to that business.
Yeah.
And so the people who are committed to that business, they get to vote in the manager, right? And then that manager would then get ratified by the total group. But the people who get to decide who is going to manage them are the people who are going to be managed, right? And so there's a certain amount of I don't know what the word is. I want to say fantasy fulfillment for those of us who have ever been a wage slave.
Yeah.
You mean everybody?
Right. Well, at the same time, talking about mandates, setting up a bit of wiggle room to allow the manager to be able to have scope over things like what product you're going to sell, what the decorations are going to look like, or what the theme is going to be. What the hours are going to be, and and how many people are going to be staffed, or how many people you have working when you have the hours up there. So having an incompetent manager and versus having a competent manager is a big deal. And at the same time, even though the manager at the end of the day is responsible for setting the schedule, the manager also needs to work with the people that they're scheduling. And so there's supposed to be a monthly meeting where they go over this, where they determine, okay, what do we need to do? Do we need more hours? Do we need to bring more people in? Because, 7 of us just aren't enough, in which case we then turn to the 92 that are there and say, does anybody want to join our business for now?
I definitely see some of the scheduling will probably have to be updated practically on a weekly basis. But
Oh, yes.
I'm just seeing no matter what we do, there's going to be teething issues in the first while before we get into a just expect that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I'm anticipating it, and I'm trying to do as many thought experiments that are the worst possible outcomes, or
Yeah.
like how can this be? Um, let's see. Oh no, the meeting will end in 10 minutes. Oh dear. Oh well.
Really? No. Oh, okay.
Well, we'll just keep talking, and we might restart again. It could be a nice time to stop and start again, just in terms of refocusing the conversation. We talked about the board. We need to have an accountant. Hope it would be a member of the 10100. They would be part of the administration team. It would be part of the 20 people left over. But at some point we're going to have the 10100 idea, or within the 10100 idea, we're going to have a moment where one of the possibilities, either as an adjunct business or as one of the core 10 businesses, we're going to have that car lot that where we've got guys who go out, buy used cars and bring them back, and we either sell them as used cars or we upgrade them, turn them into electrical vehicles, and sell them as used cars that are electrical vehicles now.
Yeah.
Which I think would be really, really interesting.
It'd be excellent. Like if you could get an electric car that doesn't cost an arm and a leg, like a Tesla.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Tyler, you're the one who's done research into how to do upgrades. What's involved in that sort of thing? Like, what are we looking at? Could we go buy an old OPP Crown Vic and what would be involved in turning that into an electrical vehicle?
Not entirely sure. Like I've never worked with electric cars. They require special training because of the great deal of electricity that could, fry you.
You need space for batteries. You probably need a big, powerful electric motor for each wheel, or at least for the driving wheels.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that maybe, like, depending on where you put the battery, whether it was in the trunk, the under the hood, or if you put a long, skinny battery underneath the floor, I think there would be some structural changes that needed to happen.
So we're definitely looking at getting an engineer or 3,
or go down to the nearest drag strip and find someone who's got an electric car. They'd have a fairly good idea on how to do it. Rednecks.
I know they exist though. I don't know if I around here, but I do know there's places where there's electric drag cars that are pretty damn impressive. Actually, so.
Oh yeah.
It would be very interesting as well with the idea of like taking like old Crown Vics and turning them into electrical vehicles, and then using those as well to start like a rideshare program in the local peninsula area where people can. We used to have this in Toronto, Zipcar or something. have similar sort of setups where people can buy into the cooperative car sharing program, and even do like our own sort of like mini Uber type deal, but uh, over the entire peninsula, or the, you know what I'm saying? Um,
The Grey Bruce area definitely could use a some transit, reach out, and if they wind up being sort of a almost like a cab company.
yeah,
Yeah,
we would almost need something similar like that, that allows people who are, especially who are live in rural settings.
exactly.
If we had like um 4 or 5 times a day where we had, people who were doing loops, or we could have people who like live up on the top of the peninsula, whose job it is to drive from Tobermory down to Owen Sound, pick up the
Hmm.
packages, that drive things off, while also picking up people for the day. Like their job is to just pick up people in the peninsula, drop them off in town, run errands, then drive people back home at night. you know um, and we just charge for the service. We'll drive you to your door, we'll help you carry your groceries. you know
Yeah,
and
you got passengers. You got a station wagon. You got passenger back seat, and the very back full of stuff you're delivering on the way up the peninsula.
yeah,
I
and just sell monthly packages, like, for $50 a month, you get 2 weekly trips to town. Yeah, you just have to schedule it with us. you know
hmm
and yeah, it would be an interesting way. I'm sure there are models that make it work, and there are models that make it don't work. I think that what would be key to making it work would be if the 10100 owned the vehicles,
hmm
and uh, uh, if we had a couple of key people that were just really good at that, and we can get a rhythm going, and we could get a steady, consistent customer base that used our services consistently.
We might also have to be the ones to implement infrastructure for charging these vehicles as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm sure we could get government grants for.
Yep.
I'm sure we could definitely make it a business.
And have them flexible so any vehicle can plug into them, no matter what manufacturer makes them.
Sure. And then we have other people charge at our places, no problem. We just
Exactly.
charge a 15-cent premium.
Sure.
Yeah, be interesting.
Hmm. I really like the idea of buying old police vehicles to convert, because one thing, if you have the motors directly mounted onto, like, right in behind the wheel, you'd have to gut the suspension and the brakes and everything, which would be shot in a cop car. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
they are beat.
Yeah, it's funny. The thing about cop cars is everything mechanically worn all the way out, but oftentimes the structure of the vehicle, they still look okay, which is why
Hmm.
some people wind up buying them. Oh, this is a good car, and then it just craps out on them. But we're
Yeah.
not using any of that stuff.
Well, in our scenario, we would have like a hub. We would have um, we would have the used car lot,
Hmm.
and we would have a team of people who's in their previous life as a capitalist wage slave, they used to work for, I don't know, Peninsula Ford or Cameron Nissan or whatever, selling cars, and now they work for us. They don't get commission, not quite. It works a little bit differently for the used cars guys,
Yeah.
but they get paid $20 an hour. They get paid the living wage. They get dividend shares, and there is a possible scheme I'm thinking might work within their thing there, and I would offer it to all businesses as well. We'll get into that some other time. But the point of the matter is, we would send them down, because you need a license to get access to like the auctions for these sorts of used vehicle sales, right? and we would bankroll them getting the license. We would set the people up. We would make sure that we get the people who have the good eye to go down and get the stuff, and then to get
I
the good stuff.
volunteer for doing some of that. That
Sure.
sounds pretty good. Well, we're down to
Well,
a minute. We got a minute
yeah, we
left.
got less than a minute.
I
Well, and
call a 69 Roadrunner.
Oh yeah,
good luck
69
if they
Roadrunner.
exist.
Oh,
I'd
they
really like
do.
an old 71 Toyota Crown. That seems to be the car I'm looking. It changes from time to time.
Fair enough.
On the time with 49 Merc.
So I'm gonna see. Let's talk this out. Let's see if they gift us an extra unlimited time, as they have done so many times before. Probably not, but if so, if not, what I'll do is I will restart the meeting, and I will send the new link out to anybody who wants to continue on with the conversation. There's only about half an hour left in the set aside time for the group thing here. So anyway, that's who I think the Antichrist is. Moving on.
Well, I didn't hear that.
It's an old joke. At any rate, where were we? Right. So we got so I have like 3 or 4 guys whose job it is to sell cars. We'll get them all nice and licensed. And then as a side benefit, uh, for being part of the 10100, you can, if I'm exploring the idea of allowing people to invest their dividend shares into businesses as ways of earning perks. Like, for example, people who invest a dividend share like once per month in, say, the department store would gain access to a once a month shopping spree where you get access to the stuff in the department store for cost plus 5%. And then there would just be everybody who puts their dividend share towards the operating costs of, or the ongoing operating costs of that particular department store would on special days get access to special shopping days where you get cost plus 5%. Great, wonderful, I love that idea. Similar idea for this idea. If you were to put your dividend shares over to the, I don't know, what would be a good name for this used car / conversion upgrade shop?
I'm the wrong guy to ask that. I'll think of something corny and nerd related.
I'm not unhappy with the direction this is going, Commander.
Would it be car nerd related?
Sure.
No, more like Marvel, DC, maybe.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Right. Oh shoot, have you ever seen Adventures in Babysitting?
Perhaps.
Me?
Oh, anybody.
I haven't.
Okay. All I'm gonna say is Thor shows up. That's it.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, so in a similar fashion, you could invest a dividend share into this, the used car business. We'll just call it that for now, and that would give you the right to tag along with the boys to choose a car, and yeah, so you can almost make a day of it, where people who invest in the business get to go down and get to select cars, and again, cost plus 5%, right? And there would be a way of getting vehicles that way. Now they would, as I say that, I don't know if there are laws that prevent us buying them at that low price and then coming back and then selling them to ourselves for I don't know. I'll have to check that out. There might be laws against this sort of thing, because I can see how that sort of
I don't think we could sell them to ourselves. I mean, if we buy cars, then we can sort of like decide which ones we're going to sell, which ones we're going to
Well, how do they do things like the company vehicle?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no, 100%. So there would totally be company vehicles, but for the individuals who want their own the right of ownership, so to speak, um, because we would be running a used car lot essentially. They would go down and they would buy cars that they would then turn around and sell to the community at a
Well,
profit, right? So
yeah,
when they do that,
at that point, like, you know, what would be illegal? It's not like we're buying the cars under the name of company for somebody. We're buying them and then selling them to people who belong to the cooperative.
well, the reason why I know a little bit about this because I've got friends who did this or used to do this, where they would go and they would buy cars because they knew they would have somebody they could sell the car to,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Um, yeah, they're sort of like, it's almost like flipping them. Sort
Yes,
of, you get one, you could sell it, or you refurbish it and sell it, which would be what we're doing essentially.
and 100%,
I
100%.
think there's
So we're sending people down to do a couple of things. We're sending them down to buy used cars that we can then turn around and sell as used cars. Um, Preferably, we'd also like to upgrade them to electrical vehicles because our electricity is made through nice, clean nuclear fuel.
James.
So, I
so
mean, relatively
it's
clean nuclear
relatively.
fuel. Right? It's
There's
Okay.
issues.
I'll
carbon
I'll
neutral.
I'll I'll take
Car-
that.
Carbon neutral. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, I
The
wonder
nuclear.
about where they put that stuff. You know.
well,
It's
not just where they put it after, just the all of the other things to make it possible
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
are all very much not green energy.
I mean,
Yeah, it's true.
there is a bit of truth to that. There is a bit of truth to that. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but
not
worth it.
we're not
Seeing
burning.
how the
It's a trade-off,
Yeah,
like
there's always a trade-off. A certain
if
amount. Just the
um
point is to do the least amount of damage. Get the biggest bang for your buck.
yeah.
So
Yeah. And so
mm,
relatively speaking, our electricity is not made through methane or through coal. It is made through uh nuclear energy. So I feel less bad about using electrical cars in the Grey Bruce than I do using gas guzzlers, that's for sure.
yeah, there's also
sorry.
It's all good.
questions about the materials in car batteries and stuff like that too. So again, we maybe have to be a little bit flexible as to like what kind of conversions we do. Maybe we'll be converting things, and I still want to do more research on hydrogen fuel cells. Stuff like
It would be very
Those are
interesting
fun.
if it would be very interesting
Sure.
if we could create our own sort of like hybrid electric vehicle
Yeah.
and actually make a factory out of it. That would be very interesting.
Be interesting.
Building like something that produces hydrogen, you might want to, watch out when you do that.
Oh, as a hydrogen fuel cell?
Yeah, you get visited
Yeah.
by guys from the gas company, and they try to buy it from you, and if you don't, maybe you choke on your carrots or something.
Well, again, after all this is done, I don't know how much clout they're going to have. We'll see.
Oof.
But I do have plans for building hydrogen boosters.
Cool.
Ooh.
I like the idea.
I got them up in my room. We built them in high school as part of a project.
Neato.
Yeah. So you'd hook it up into your car, preferably a carbureted motor, so you could tune it yourself, so you didn't have a computer to fool.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just hook it up to your battery. Electrolysis creates the gas, gets piped into your intake manifold, and then you can lean out your gas quite a bit and have a more complete burn, more fuel efficient, and a tiny little bit more power.
Yeah.
Vroom, vroom.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that's I totally want to experiment with that. So
So yeah, so
like
we'd
Should,
have as a benefit of having this business as part of the 10100, we would have the option of being able to take along with these guys once a month to the auctions, where you would get to maybe go home with the car as well. And I really do like the idea of having. I'm perfectly okay with never owning a vehicle ever again myself, but having access to a vehicle is incredibly convenient. So having access to like a company car would be awesome. And never having to worry about, if the company car starts going a little conky, I just take it in and get swap it out for another one. Right. And having a shop staffed with people whose job it is to just keep the company cars afloat. I mean, this works.
in, in
Right.
conjunction with that idea, and I mean, before all this came up, I was always thinking that if I were to buy a car that was mine, it would be something I would enjoy. But my daily driver would probably be like a lease vehicle or
Right.
something like that. And
Right.
this would be along that line. Like I could have my pet project, but the daily company vehicle or whatever.
Right. So in a scenario like that, this is what I was thinking about before about the possible legalities of stuff where
Yeah.
you would take along with the guys or the people, and maybe send girls along too. Why not? To get a specific vehicle that you're looking for. I heard something like a 69 something. And all I heard was 69, and then I started giggling.
You
it's a
want a
And
good year.
Roadrunner?
Yeah, Roadrunner.
Yeah, Roadrunner's cool.
Okay. Yeah, so you're going down to the auctions. You're specifically wanting to buy the Roadrunner for you. Now, you as a private citizen do not have access to these vehicle auctions. You need to have a license, you need to have a buy-in, you need to have like it's exclusionary. So, you as a private citizen don't have access to it, but you gain access to it through these guys who are part of the 10100. So when it comes back, uh, you're going to buy that vehicle. They're basically purchasing that vehicle in order to sell it to you.
Yes.
And then at that point, it wouldn't necessarily be the 10100 that's going to turn that into a company car, because then at that point, anybody could technically take your company car, and you want this 69 Roadrunner, right?
Well,
Right.
okay. There
So,
are other auctions too. Like I know at the International Center every year, I think
yeah.
twice a year actually, they've got used to be an RM auction, but they have like specialty cars and stuff like that. Although in most more recent years they've been trying to sell other more mundane vehicles alongside to actually make their money. So,
Well,
and you don't have to be, you don't have, you can be a private citizen to go to that one and get vehicles too. And
oh,
sometimes
I
you
see
get
what you're saying.
deals.
I was thinking specifically for like the used car sales,
Yeah,
like the
which would be
ones that
great to
happen
have
over
an
by
in on
Bear.
that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
great to have an in on that.
you do tend to get a better deal there.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I,
bulk there almost, pretty much. You know,
yep.
1,000
Um,
Corollas for only 1,000. No,
I mean, whatever it is, like we'll have access to it, and that'll be the point. And then, yeah. So in the case of the 69 Roadrunner, they would buy it on your behalf, and that they would bring it back, and it would have a sold sign on it, and you would then, as a private citizen, you would come in on the Monday morning, the weekend after, after the weekend that you guys go down and buy it. So I think it happens on the Saturday or something, right? Doesn't matter.
usually happens on a weekend.
There you go.
Well, actually,
Uh,
some of these other ones I don't know because technically they might happen on business hours because it's business. It's part of the business day going and getting them for some businesses. I don't know. Again, I'm personally for
yeah,
one
no,
like
I only heard the guys talk about it. They didn't talk about the details regarding timing very much. They weren't interested
yeah.
in that. They were much more interested in what vehicles they could get, the makes, and how much they could flip them for.
Whenever the auction was, we just look it up and the dates would be on. So
Yeah.
not concerned about that.
Yeah, so in a scenario like with that, you would then go with them to purchase it on the weekend, and then on the Monday you would go in as a private citizen and you would purchase the vehicle, right? Um, that's the one thought that I have.
Wondering about the legality of that. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it would be interesting to looking it up to see how that would work. So long as um,
Other than actually going to it, like I know a couple of car dealers who go down to those auctions and they tell me just tell me the year, the make, the model you want, and if I find it, I'll call you,
oh
grab
yeah,
it.
of course, because that's how they make their money. The difficulty comes in the fact that you as a private citizen would also be a co-owner in the business. Ultimately, that has the license for
Oh,
it.
okay. Well, I'm fairly certain that's how the guy in Hanover got his Lamborghini with
There are
daddy's money.
perks. There are perks. Um,
It
yeah, I'm
seems like
sure
a
there are
hard,
ways around it.
pretty innocuous perk. If there's, I don't know why there'd be too many. Like, how many vehicles are you going to actually accumulate when you do this thing anyway? Especially with an auction like that. Most
You
of the
see
cars,
this? Do you see the smile? Because remember, you guys are going to have disposable income.
well, depends, but yeah, okay. But most of these auctions are not selling specialty vehicles. They're selling
No.
those.
Yeah.
When if they have a specialty vehicle on there, I don't think anybody's going to really care who
Very
that
true.
winds up with it. So long as, honestly, they just want someone who will care about the vehicle who will wind up with, if it's really a special vehicle.
Hmm.
That's a car guy talking. So,
There you go. And there are some people who just don't care. They just want the money.
yeah, that's, and again, they wouldn't care who wants the car. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. So then we'd have a mechanic shop that would be doing these upgrades. I love the idea of getting like a bay that has like multiple hoists and stuff, so that we could um as part of the 10100, the 10100 would get, in addition to the car lot, they would get hoists and things like that as well. So that we could have a place where if you got a vehicle, you now got a place to come get your vehicle done. We now have a place that we can then recommend everybody, in our cousins, our neighbors, our random strangers. We can send them over to our place to get relatively cheap oil changes, tire rotations, blah blah blah, whatever. It doesn't matter. We'll do it all because we want the money, and we'll make sure that now the mechanics, again, they're going to get paid less than what they're used to getting paid, because as they're just going to get the $20 an hour like the rest of us, but
But with
they
the
get the
PIP
dividend
system,
shares.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. And that's where the incentivization comes in. So you'll get a living
From
wage hourly, week to week. You'll get a good paycheck, a decent paycheck, and then once a quarter you'll have, potentially, depending on how much money the cooperative made, you'll have a ridiculous amount of money, or the options to put into things like group vacations, things like that. Or the options to putting into like the option of going to go get a car at the um,
These auctions.
thank you very much. Yes, the police auctions. Yeah. So I'm beginning to hit that wall there. Brain is beginning to
Yeah, 10 minutes and 7 o'clock anyway. So
I think my battery was at 10% when we started this second conversation.
excitement, as they say. Well, yeah. So thank you guys for sitting around and chatting a bit, talking about the 10100 for a little bit. I like the idea about the yeah, because like I the other idea, just to talk about having a shop, because like having a place where members can go and take their vehicle in. I like the idea of other benefit of having a shop that as a selling feature to members of the 10 100 would be if you put a dividend share towards the operations of the shop, you would gain access to be able to use the shop on a regular basis after hours. So the shop would obviously have regular operating hours, and
Of
then
course.
there would also be hours when the business would not be operating, wherein that you could book time, providing you could complete a course that the manager would be satisfied that, yeah, this guy isn't going to drop a car on top of his head. Or
Exactly.
we would have a set time where we would have a licensed mechanic on duty or that would manage the floor and would supervise people who were using hoists and things like that. But
And try
would
to
be
make sure your
available
car's
for,
not occupying a hoist that needs to be used in the morning.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
And so there'd be like 4 hours on a night that you could book off that you could then go and bring your car in and work on it for a couple of hours in the shop. And it would almost be like the possibility that the shop might become like an after hours club, basically, for members of the cooperative who are gearheads.
Yeah.
That would be my dream.
Sounds good to me.
Right?
Yeah.
We would have customer time, and then we'd have co-op time, and then and I mean, you guys are all members. If you guys wanted to be up at the shop at 2 o'clock in the morning, so long as you're licensed and you're signed off, go for it. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Use the space, put everything back where you found it. Don't break anything, and if you do, tell us so that we can replace it.
Of course.
You know, and yeah, um, yeah, that would be another one of the benefits of having a shop with that there. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a really handy. That's definitely a really handy for the 10100. I think.
Mm-hmm.
The department store slash grocery stores is another, and it might actually be a really good place to start for the core original business too. I think
Mm-hmm.
be a good, because it's all encompassing. It kind of it's the most mainstream of all the ideas, and pretty much everyone will step foot in it at one point or another.
I got to tell you, I'm still really excited about the idea of a tattoo shop. Now I
Tattoo
know,
shop that would
I,
do well around here.
yeah.
I gotta say, yeah.
We also have some artists who are potentially interested.
Hmm.
Plus, the initial capital investment is incredibly low, and the amount of capital gains, the return on investment is ridiculous versus the amount of upfront investment. Um, so yeah, it would be a really good business to start off with because of the insane profit margin on tattoos, and because of the way that we remunerate the artists, which is
Hmm.
not according to the way the artists are traditionally remunerated, which also in part accounts for why the prices are as high as they are.
Yeah.
But we're also doing things because we're remunerating them differently. Um, uh, they're going to get a living wage if they show up no matter what, whether or not they're doing they have somebody to tattoo or not. And they're probably going to have somebody to tattoo because, especially if they're the first business that gets started, they're going to have 92 of us on the outside. Sending as many, of our cousins and relatives and neighbors and strangers who has ever even breathed that they've thought about getting a tattoo to the tattoo parlor on our behalf so that we can get dividend shares. Because
Mm.
now for the first little bit, dividend shares are not going to be worth very much. I want to emphasize that
Yeah.
because I don't want to oversell the idea and have people disappointed later on. But when we first get started, the amount of reinvestment that the businesses do is it's the same ratio as the amount of businesses that we have started. So if we have other 10 businesses, if we have one business going and 9 waiting to get going, 90% of what the one business that's running that generates in terms of surplus goes back into the capital fund.
Yeah.
And only 10% goes into the dividend fund, at which point the dividends are going to be worth about 10% of what that business made.
Yeah.
In terms of the surplus divided between the people that
It'll be
made
somewhat
it.
low to start with, but again, we
Yeah.
need to make sure we establish a bed of cash for the thing to float on.
And because every single month we're always coming in, we're always bringing $100, which is really $10,000, because 100 times 100 is 10 grand. And so every month we bring that 10 grand in. That's going to the capital pool, which we then vote on, and we then take a look at the remaining 9 businesses and say, okay, what's their startup cost versus their ongoing operating budget, versus, do we have enough money in the bank to cover it? All right, go. Do we want to? Do we have a motion to start the department store next, as opposed to the tattoo parlor? So now we got the tattoo parlor and the department store next, so then we spend a month getting the department store ready, and then we have a grand opening where everybody sends their cousin and their neighbor and their whatever with our little business card with the QR code that they scan on it in order to get their dividend shares. And yeah, so that's the plan.